Good morning, everyone. Thanks for watching. This is Now. You're looking at a live picture coming into our digital center from Washington. This is from the White House. Members of the Coronavirus Task Force are getting ready to hold a media briefing. We are going to dip into that as soon as it happens here. But until then, we got a lot of news to get to, right, Ashley?
That's right. So we are awaiting an update regarding the state's first coronavirus-related death. Now, the Department of Health says an adult on Oahu passed away on March 20th and had multiple underlying health conditions. They did not give the person's age or gender, but officials believe the patient caught the virus via, quote, an indirect travel-related exposure. Now, initial testing at a commercial lab was indeterminate of COVID-19, but a follow-up test at the state lab confirmed it. And we just learned Maui Memorial has confirmed an employee has the virus. The employee is said to be in good condition and is isolated to prevent the spread of infection to others.
Now, I have a map here that shows the island-by-island breakdown of the confirmed cases. We do expect these to grow. We're waiting a briefing from the Department of Health here shortly. In about 2 hours, they typically have those, and we sometimes get updated numbers a little bit before that. But as you can see, there's this total of 77 cases. There's 21 new ones yesterday, the majority of them being right here on Oahu with 53. The next most is on the Valley Isle with 11 there in Maui. We got a lot of other news to get to too, right, Ash?
Right, there are dire warnings coming out of New York, now the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak here in the U.S. The governor of New York says the infection rate in his state is doubling every 3 days and will peak sooner than expected. Here's Tom Hansen.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo says his state now has 25,000 cases of coronavirus, 10 times the numbers in California and Washington state.
We were looking at a freight train coming across the country. We're now looking at a bullet train because the numbers are going up that quickly.
Cuomo says the number of cases in New York is doubling every 3 days and is expected to peak in 2 to 3 weeks.
New York is the canary in the coal mine. What happens to New York is going to wind up happening to California and Washington State and Illinois. It's just a matter of time.
The state expects to need 30,000 ventilators. FEMA sent 2,000 from the national stockpile on Tuesday. But new ventilator production from companies like Ford, which is already making supplies like face shields, won't make it to the market for months.
We're talking about early June, where we don't think it's a problem, but between now and June, it's about ramping up.
The Javits Center behind me is being converted into a field hospital to treat non-coronavirus patients and relieve the burden on the hospital system, which will now need 140,000 beds to meet peak demand. 26-year-old New York yoga teacher Fiona Lowenstein says she had no underlying medical conditions, but ended up hospitalized with COVID-19. She's now recovering at home.
I still have no sense of smell. I'm having GI problems. At some point during this crisis, we have all not taken it seriously.
The governor of Florida has ordered anyone flying into his state from New York or New Jersey needs to self-quarantine for 14 days. Tom Hansen, CBS News, New York.
And back here at home, Honolulu's stay-at-home order went into effect yesterday, while the statewide order goes into effect on Wednesday. Despite both being very detailed, there's still some confusion over who's supposed to show up to work and who's supposed to stay home. Here's Chelsea Davis.
Only do things when you need to. Don't go to the supermarket every day, but go to the supermarket when you need to.
Under Honolulu's stay-at-home order, many activities are still allowed, like getting medicine, visiting a doctor, and getting supplies needed to stay at home. What's not allowed seems to target one industry.
Essentially, we've shut tourism down. There's projected to be tens of thousands of people unemployed. This is a sacrifice that society has made. And not necessarily because those people chose to be sacrificed, because that's what was needed. And if we don't all take this seriously, that sacrifice would have been for nothing.
A 14-day mandatory quarantine for all incoming visitors and returning residents is set to go into effect on Thursday. Malls, hotels, bars, restaurants, nightclubs, and many other businesses have all closed its doors for the foreseeable future.
As I actually got to sit back and rewind and view it, it kind of set in, and that's at the very moment I knew. And it wasn't really for me, it was about everyone else, our team, and what are they going to do.
Today, Governor David Ige issued a statewide order to stay at home. That will go into effect at 12:01 a.m. Wednesday. It's aimed to stop all but essential activities in the state. The definition of essential is broad, and he says discrepancies between the state and county orders would be ironed out in the days ahead.
If you need to get groceries and necessities, you should go and get groceries and necessities. For any other time, you should be at home. It is about everyone doing their part. Gatherings should not occur outside of the home. You should not be going to meet friends.
For economic relief, Ige has extended the filing deadline for 2019 individual state income taxes from April 20th to July 20th. And he says public schools is still set to resume on April 7th because he considers education essential.
All right, that was Chelsea Davis there reporting. Hey, we're talking about economic news there at the end of her story. I love being able to say this. The Dow Jones Industrial Average surged in its best day since 1933.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's all with the news coming out of Washington. We're expecting that's the deal that's nearing with the White House and Congress to pump trillions of dollars into our economy. The Dow reacted to that upcoming news, up more than 11%.
Awesome. Yeah, and President Trump said today he wants the U.S. open for business by Easter. Now, that's less than 3 weeks from now. Meanwhile, that deal on the massive stimulus package to cushion the economic blow of the pandemic could be hours away. Here's Skylar Henry on Capitol Hill with more.
We have to open this country up.
President Trump, answering questions during a Fox News town hall, said he wants to get Americans back to work.
We can socially distance ourselves and go to work, and you'll have to work a little bit harder. You can clean your hands 5 times more than you used to.
The president's comments come as the number of cases of the coronavirus in the U.S. surpassed 45,000 Tuesday. Several members of Congress are calling for a national 2-week shelter-in-place order.
You're going to lose a number of people to the flu, but you're going to lose more people by putting a country into a massive recession or depression.
In the same town hall, Vice President Mike Pence called New York the epicenter of the crisis and said thousands of ventilators are being shipped from the national stockpile. The vice president also said he's hopeful therapeutics will be available to treat the virus later this spring. Meanwhile, the FDA announced it is taking action to allow imports of more protection equipment for healthcare workers and centers.
President Trump touted his administration's work with Congress as lawmakers on both sides of the aisle pushed legislation to help soften the economic and health impacts of the coronavirus pandemic.
The Senate and the administration say they're close to a nearly $2 trillion Phase 3 coronavirus stimulus bill.
Last night, I thought we were on the 5-yard line. Right now, we're on the 2.
Folks at home don't need we're close. They need this done.
The proposed bill will put checks directly in the hands of many Americans, provide more funding for health care needs and unemployment insurance, and give loans to businesses large and small. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Here at home, Matson says these stay-at-home orders will not affect its service. Officials say ports are at normal operation and shipments arrive 3 times per week in Honolulu and 2 times a week to the neighbor islands.
All right, this morning in our Sunrise studio, we had Lieutenant Governor Josh Green. He shared with our Grace Lee what information he knows about that most recent death we've learned, or the first death we've ever learned about for the state. Let's listen to their interview. I'm going to play it out for you right now.
Late last night, the state announced the first person has died from coronavirus. Now, he died on Friday. There are 21 new cases of COVID-19 that were confirmed just yesterday, bringing Hawaii's total to 77. Lieutenant Governor Josh Green joins us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Grace.
I wanted to start off by asking you about the first coronavirus-related death and if you knew anything else, because we've gotten very few details so far.
The details are just coming in. My understanding is this individual had severe chronic disease, and that is the risk factor of worst concern. People who have heart and lung disease are at much higher risk of dying from COVID-19 or the flu or any other upper respiratory illness, and that is an unfortunate reality. So not only are we telling everyone to isolate at home, but even more importantly, if you have people in your family that have chronic illness or who are senior, the kupuna in your home, you cannot expose them. So that's why we are worried about this fatality and all fatalities for that matter.
And following up, I wanted to talk to you about hydroxychloroquine because there's been some debate about whether this drug that was initially used for malaria should also be used for COVID-19 patients. What do you think?
The answer, I believe, is it's not proven yet, and we just don't know. They will be trying lots of different drugs to help people. Hydroxychloroquine, which is malaria treatment, may very well be one of them, also other antivirals, but nothing's been proven, and people should rely on science. Ultimately, we'll get as much data as we can.
Wanted to also ask you, we're looking at a statewide order. People are staying at home right now. There are a lot of concerns, I think, around people who say they can't work until April 30th. Will they be able to come back to work and make money at that time? What do you think we're going to be seeing at that point? And will businesses be able to open back up?
I certainly hope so. I think that if we do a good job now through April 30th, we'll be able to take the lid off and return to some normalcy. The question will be, has the spread died down sufficiently that we're not going to see additional spread and then a secondary surge? There will be a massive response economically from the legislature. They're taking this completely seriously. There will have to be large packages of unemployment, disability insurance, and support, direct support for businesses across the state. We will quickly restore normalcy when people begin to travel here, of course, and there will be a very large pent-up demand to come and travel to Hawaii come summer. I'm completely confident about that. So the tourism industry, restaurants, they are going to go ballistic once people get through the crisis on the mainland and across the world. We're still going to have to be monitoring the health consequences as travelers come here. But I will tell you, there will be a ferocious economic recovery in the fall. People just have to hold on for dear life through April 30th, and we're going to be okay. And I will just add this. People think I might be a little angry on TV. My wife said so. I'm just really serious, guys. Please be serious and stay at home and don't spread the disease. We love you too much to see people get sick.
All right, Lieutenant Governor Josh Green there. Now, at this point, Hawaii's public schools are still on track to reopen on Tuesday, April 7th, which is 2 weeks from today. Several states have told students to prepare for distance learning for the rest of the school year, but officials here have not said that. The State Department of Education says teachers are currently working on plans for thousands of the state's high school seniors. We should know more by the end of the week.
All right, like so many other things, local banks are switching up how they do business. Our Lacey Denise has details on that.
In response to the widening restrictions in place due to the coronavirus pandemic, banks are modifying their hours and closing some branches starting this week. Bank of Hawaii is temporarily closing branches across the state and also in the Pacific region. Closures start this Thursday for Maui County, Hawaii Island, and Kauai. Some Oahu branches are also scheduled to close on Thursday as well. And branches in Guam, Palau, and Saipan close Friday. The nearly 30 branches that will remain open will add a dedicated hours for kupuna from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. daily. First Hawaiian Bank, they have already closed its Pearl Ridge branch for regular banking services, except for its safe deposit box, ATM, and night deposit services. However, their Pearl City and Moanalua branches, they will remain open, and their Saipan branch will be open from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Monday through Friday. For a full list of closures and modified hours, head to our website, hawaiinewsnow.com.
All right, thanks, Lacey. We showed you a picture of this yesterday. Now we have some new video, and I'm going to describe it to you for our podcast listeners. This is Aloha Stadium, folks. Look at all those cars, and that's rental cars. That's because there's so many people off the road. So many visitors aren't taking advantage of those rental cars, so there's an excess. So they have to do something with them. Rental car companies are using this as part of an agreement they've had with the state. We've learned for some time they are paying a fee. That's part of an agreement they've had, but we're just seeing lines and lines, and this looks like a full parking lot.
It looks like Bruno Mars is here.
Yeah, seriously, that's a great way to put it. But yeah, we'll keep following that, see what ends up happening there, and just keep following how all local companies are adapting to what we're dealing with here now with the pandemic. We're going to get to some other news of the day real quick.
HFD is investigating an early morning blaze that damaged state offices in Wahiawa, where employees are trying to adapt to life under the work-from-home order. Casey Lunn has more on their new set of challenges.
And actually, I just did not load that story just yet, so we're going to get to weather first, and then we'll get right to Casey.
How's it on this Monday? I'm Guy Hage with your HawaiiNewsNow.com forecast. The trade winds are at full strength. Look at this. They're running about 15 to 30 miles an hour. are already expected to get stronger throughout the day. And even though the winds aren't strong in Kailua Kona over in Hilo, parts of the Big Island are under a wind advisory. And that's all the way until at least tomorrow evening, might even be extended to Thursday. We're talking gusts upwards of 50 miles an hour, and that could produce some spotty power outages. Plus, with the self-isolation, the self-quarantining, it's not going to be a good situation. Now, the other thing to watch out for, large surf. Even though the governor said it's okay to go surfing and do some ocean recreation, the beach parks are closed and there's a limited amount of lifeguards out there. So it's an extremely dangerous situation when you add that to the large surf. It's big,
not to interrupt you, guy there. We're going to interrupt you for one moment, but we do have some breaking news we need to get to, and that is the president who is speaking now. Let's take you there live.
Gloves and more than 4,000 ventilators to the areas of greatest need have already been sent, and we have 4,000 being delivered to New York. The federal government is using every resource at its disposal to acquire and distribute critical medical supplies. The core element of this strategy is my executive order authorizing the use of the Defense Production Act, which has, as you know, already been activated actually a long time ago, quite a long time ago. Private companies are heeding our call to produce medical equipment and supplies because they know that we will not hesitate to invoke the DPA in order to get them to do what they have to do. It's called leverage. You don't have to use it from the standpoint of actually it's been activated, but you don't have to use it. But the threat of it being there is great leverage, and companies are doing as we ask, and companies are actually even better than that. They're coming through and they're calling us. And it's been really something to see this morning. Ford, 3M, General Electric Healthcare are making tremendous numbers. They've already started of respirators, ventilators, and face shields. They're working together. We didn't have to exercise or utilize the DPA in any way. The fact that we have it helps, but we didn't have to, and for the most part, we won't have to. We're receiving full cooperation from companies with the understanding that the federal government stands ready to compel cooperation if need be. We haven't found that to be the case. It's been really amazing to see these big, strong, powerful, in some cases, very small companies, family-owned companies, step up and make a lot of great product for what we're going through and what we will continue to be going through for a while. The Army Corps of Engineers and the National Guard are building 4 hospital facilities in New York City at the Javits Center, which will be operational very soon. They've already started. In addition, they're building 4 separate medical facilities in different parts of the state. We're dealing with Governor Cuomo on that. So you're going to have 4 hospitals and 4 medical facilities at the highest level, too. Really incredible facilities. Temporary, but incredible. We're also deploying the U.S. Navy hospital ship, and that will be arriving in New York Harbor in the not-too-distant future. It's finishing its maintenance. They're doing a very big maintenance, and what we did is we condensed it very seriously. And as you know, the other hospital ship, and these are incredible ships, it's already on its way to Los Angeles. So we're in frequent contact with state and local officials and getting a lot of work done. We're likewise building hospitals in Los Angeles. We're working also the state of Washington. We're working with the governor of the state of New Jersey. We're building a medical facility, a hospital facility, and doing a lot of work. I want to thank the people from FEMA, the great people from FEMA, and also the Army Corps of Engineers. Secretary Mnuchin and the members of my administration continue to work closely with Congress. I'm pleased to report that we are working to pass the biggest and boldest financial relief package in American history. Senators will soon hopefully vote on a $2 trillion bill that will deliver direct cash payments to struggling Americans. No fault of their own. This came out of nowhere. Nobody can imagine this even happened. But it's not their fault. We want to protect, and we will, all of the things that a person needs protected and a family needs protected. We're working on job retention loans for small businesses and extended unemployment insurance for laid-off workers. The legislation will also include billions of dollars for additional resources for our, and really heroic, these are incredible doctors, nurses, brave, and hospitals, as well as support for hard-hit industries such as the airline industry and the cruise ship industry, which employ tremendous amounts of people and obviously serve very important functions beyond that, with very tough protections for the American taxpayer. The loans will be very secure and they will be very profitable, and at the same time they'll bridge, they call them bridge loans in many cases, they'll be bridging these companies back into very good health. And some of them are very important companies that 4 weeks ago didn't have a problem. I'm also confident that the Democrats will do the right thing. I feel very confident. They're working very hard together right now, Republicans and Democrats, and they're getting very close to a very fair deal and a great deal for the people of our country. Today, as you probably saw, the Dow surged over 2,100 points. That's the all-time record history of the exchange. This is very encouraging, and I think part of the reason is they are looking at what is close to being passed, and I think a very big part of it is they see that we want to get our country open as soon as possible. They see we're working very hard on that. That's a very big factor, I think, in today's historic gain. The legislation developed in the Senate is the first step to restoring confidence and stability to America's economy as we look ahead to the time when we can carefully and responsibly reopen our country for business, and we hope that's going to be very soon. I want to assure Americans that we have a team of public health experts. We've gotten to know them as well as I know them. They're great people, incredible, talented. They love our country. Also, economists and other professionals working to develop a sophisticated plan to reopen the economy as soon as the time is right. One based on the best science, the best modeling, and the best medical research there is anywhere on earth. Our great people have been, especially when it comes to our public health experts and officials, have been helping other countries, dealing with other countries, constant touch with other countries, helping them out, because many of them have never seen anything like what's happening. But our decision will be based on hard facts and data as to the opening. I'm also hopeful to have Americans working again by that Easter, that beautiful Easter day. But rest assured, every decision we make is grounded solely in the health, safety, and well-being of our citizens. This is a medical crisis. This isn't a financial crisis. But it's a thing that nobody has seen for many, many decades, nothing like this. Marshaling our economic strength is a key feature of defeating the virus, producing the material supplies and equipment that we need, and they're doing a really fantastic job. We're helping the governors. We had a conference call the other day with the governors, and we allowed the press to join us on the call, and the spirit between us and the governors has been really great. We should never be reliant on a foreign country for the means of our own survival. I think we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot. This crisis has underscored just how critical it is to have strong borders and a robust manufacturing sector. For 3 years, we've embarked on a great national project to secure our immigration system and bring back our manufacturing jobs. We brought back many jobs, record numbers of jobs. And this really shows, this experience shows how important borders are. Without borders, you don't have a nation. Our goal for the future must be to have American medicine for American patients, American supplies for American hospitals, and American equipment for our great American heroes. Now both parties must unite to ensure the United States is truly an independent nation in every sense of the word. Energy independence, we've established that. And something incredible that we've established. We're energy independent, manufacturing independence, economic independence, and territorial independence enforced by strong sovereign borders. America will never be a supplicant nation. We will be a proud, prosperous, independent, and self-reliant nation. We will embrace commerce with all, but we will be dependent on none. Above all, we know that the best thing for our economy and the world right now is a very, very powerful victory over the virus. Every day, the American people are showing the unity and resolve that has always defined the character of our nation. In New York, citizens are using 3D printers to make hundreds of face shields. They're making them by the hundreds. In Texas, businesses and churches are uniting to collect gloves and thermometers for hospitals. In the selfless actions of our amazing citizens, we're seeing enduring strength of our magnificent nation, a spirit that can never be broken, and a victorious future that can never be denied. It never will be denied. Now what I'd like to do is perhaps ask a person who has really established herself as maybe the world's great expert on what she does. If I could ask Deborah to come forward and say a few words, and then I'll ask Tony to come up and speak, and then our Vice President, and then we'll take a few questions, and we'll do it quickly, and we'll probably see you again tomorrow. So, Deborah, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I think those of you who heard the town hall, we are continuing to accelerate testing at a record rate. We now have 370,000 tests that have been done. The majority of those, over 220,000 in the last 8 days, which of those of you who have been tracking the South Korea numbers, put us equivalent to what they did in 8 weeks that we did in 8 days. This was made possible because of the HHS team working together, bringing together the strength of the FDA with the CDC and under the leadership of Secretary Azar. We're very proud of those numbers, but we know that we have to do more, and we continue to accelerate in testing to ensure that those who need the test are tested first and have access. As we talked about yesterday, we're working on the ability for people to take their own sample. That does not mean home testing. That means taking your own sample in the front of your nose with available swabs into normal saline that can be transported to the laboratories. That will allow and free up all of the drive-thrus to be very sparing on PPE, because you'll be able to do that with gloves rather than the full PPE outfits. This will allow for more of that PPE to be dedicated to our hospitals. I think those of you who are tracking this epidemic closely, like I am, you will begin to see that there is encouraging results coming out of Italy. We are impressed by the decreases that are seen in mortality, the number of people succumbing to this illness, and the number of new cases. Our new cases will continue to surge because we're still working on our backlog, although we will be in touch with the laboratories after this press conference to really find out how many are still in backlog and how many were run in the last 24 hours. Until we can get into a 24-hour cycle, we're going to have disproportional number of new cases compared to the actual new cases, and we will let you know when we've reached that equilibrium. Finally, and I know Dr. Fauci will talk about this further, we remain deeply concerned about New York City and the New York metro area. About 56% of all the cases in the United States are coming out of that metro area, and 60% of all the new cases are coming out of the metro New York area, and 31% of the people succumbing to this disease. It means, because they still are at the 31% mortality compared to the other regions of the country, that we can have a huge impact if we unite together. This means, as in all places, they have to be following the presidential guidelines that were put out 8 or 9 days ago, and this will be critical. But to everyone who has left New York over the last few days, because of the rate of the number of cases, you may have been exposed before you left New York. And I think, like Governor DeSantis has put out today, everybody who was in New York should be self-quarantining for the next 14 days to ensure that the virus doesn't spread to others, no matter where they have gone, whether it's Florida, North Carolina, or out to far reaches of Long Island. We are starting to see new cases across Long Island that suggest people have left the city. So this will be very critical that those individuals do self-quarantine in their homes over these next 14 days to make sure they don't pass the virus to others based on the time that they left New York. So if they already are 4 days out, then it's just 10 more days. So I thank you if you help get that message out to others. Dr. Fauci?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Deb. I want to just talk very briefly about 2 or 3 things. First, the issue of testing and how that has really changed the complexion of the approach that we're going to be able to take. Testing was an issue. We had many questions of testing in this room for a number of times. Now that we literally have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of testing out there are a few things that we can do with that. One of the things is that when we make policy about what we're going to be doing with the rest of the country, particularly those areas that are not hot spots, we need to know what the penetrance of infection is there. So we need to put a light on those dark spots that we don't know. We have to act policy-wise on data. And we're going to be getting more data, a lot more data. The other thing is that the areas of the country that are not hotspots, that are not going through the terrible ordeal that New York and California and Washington State are going through, they still have a window of significant degree of being able to contain. In other words, when you test, you find somebody, you isolate them, you get them out of circulation, and you do the contact tracing. When you have a big outbreak, it's tough to do anything but mitigation. We have an opportunity now that we have the availability of testing to do that. So you're going to be hearing more about how we can inform where we're going, particularly because we have the ability to test. The second thing is I just want to reiterate what Dr. Birx said about New York. It's a very serious situation. They've suffered terribly through no fault of their own. But what we're seeing now is that understandably, people want to get out of New York. They're going to Florida. They're going to Long Island. They're going to different places. The idea, if you look at the statistics, it's disturbing. About 1 per 1,000 of these individuals are infected. That's about 8 to 10 times more than in other areas, which means when they go to another place, for their own safety, they've got to be careful, monitor themselves. If they get sick, bring it to the attention of a physician, get tested. Also, the idea about self-isolating for 2 weeks will be very important because we don't want that to be another seeding point to the rest of the country wherever they go. And then thirdly, just one comment about drugs and the testing of drugs. You know, you heard yesterday about drugs being out there that physicians on an off-label way can prescribe it to give people hope of something that hasn't been definitively proven to work, but that might have some hope. I don't want anybody to forget that simultaneously with our doing that, we're also doing randomized clinical trials on a number of candidates. You've heard about candidates, but there are others in the pipeline where we'll be able to design the study, and over a period of time, particularly since we have so many infections, we'll be able to determine definitively, are these safe and are they effective? We're talking about remdesivir, other drugs, immune sera, convalescent sera, monoclonal antibodies. All of these are in the pipeline now, queuing up to be able to go into clinical trial. So I'll stop there and talk.
Thank you, Larry, how about just a quick few minutes on how we're doing over at the Hill?
Thank you, sir. We're gaining great progress on this Phase 3 legislation. Negotiations continue. We've had continued reports. I've been up there with Secretary Mnuchin. Secretary Mnuchin continues today with Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, checking in with the President. They're getting closer and closer. They expect to vote as soon as possible. I just want to walk through a couple of key points. This legislation is urgently needed to bolster the economy, provide cash injections and liquidity, and stabilize financial markets to get us through a difficult period, a difficult and challenging period in the economy facing us right now, but also to position us for what I think can be an economic rebound later this year. We started the year very strong. And then we got hit by the coronavirus in ways that probably nobody imagined possible. We're dealing with that as best we can. This package will be the single largest Main Street assistance program in the history of the United States. The single largest Main Street assistance program in the history of the United States. Phase 2 delivered the sick leave for individuals, hourly workers, families, and so forth. Phase 3, a significant package for small businesses. Loan guarantees will be included. We're going to take out expenses and lost revenues. As the President said, eligibility requires worker retention. We will maintain, the people eligible will maintain their payrolls during this crisis period. And on top of that, we will have direct deposit checks of roughly $3,000 for a family of 4, and that will bridge to enhanced, plussed up unemployment insurance benefits that will essentially take those up to full wages. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, a strong workforce requires strong business. You can't have a job without a business to work for. And the hope here is that the companies that were operating very well at the beginning of the year when the economy was in good shape, we will help them and their employees get through this tough period so they will come out the other side, let's say this later this spring or summer, and will continue their operations. That's the key point. Now, don't forget, there's income tax deferrals for individuals and corporations without interest and penalties. There's student loan interest and principal deferrals without any penalties. And finally, I want to mention the Treasury's Exchange Stabilization Fund. That will be replenished. It's important because that fund opens the door for Federal Reserve firepower to deal a broad-based way throughout the economy for distressed industries, for small businesses, for financial turbulence. You've already seen the Fed take action. They intend to take more action. And in order to get this, we have to replenish the Treasury's emergency fund. It's very, very important. Not everybody understands that. That fund, by the way, will be overseen by an oversight board and an inspector general. It will be completely transparent. So the total package here comes to roughly $6 trillion, $2 trillion direct assistance, roughly $4 trillion in Federal Reserve lending power. Again, it will be the largest Main Street financial package in the history of the United States. Liquidity and cash for families, small business, individuals, unemployed to keep this thing going. We're heading for a rough period, but it's only going to be weeks, we think. Weeks, months, not going to be years, that's for sure. And hopefully pave the way for continued economic recovery after this crisis departs. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I've been hearing that voice for so many years, like 30 years or more maybe, and it's a great voice and it's a great man. So Larry Kudlow, thank you very much. I want to say that that package, and we went over parts of it, but pretty big parts, it really sets us up to, I think, even supersede where we were a month ago. I think we can get up there quickly, and I think it allows us to supersede. It allows us to help these great companies that need help, like Boeing, which is, had a problem, and then on top of that problem, it had the virus come in. But we'll be helping Boeing, we'll be helping the airlines, we'll be helping the cruise lines, we'll be doing a lot of things, and the money will all come back to us, and it'll come back to us in a very strong form. And before we take some questions, I'd like to ask our great Vice President to say a few words, if you would, Mike, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The White House Coronavirus Task Force met again today. And on behalf of the President of the United States, everyone on our team, I know state leaders, let me just say thank you, America. People across this country, businesses large and small, are responding to the threat of the coronavirus in ways that are deeply inspiring. People are acting on the President's 15 days to slow the spread, and it is making a material difference. Our experts standing beside us told us that if every American, regardless of whether you're in an area that's impacted by an outbreak of the coronavirus or not, if every American would embrace these guidelines, that we could significantly reduce the number of Americans that would contract the coronavirus and protect the most vulnerable And as the President reflected earlier, tens of millions of Americans are doing just that, and we're grateful. The focus of our task force, of course, is to slow the spread, to promote mitigation strategies. Beyond that, though, the President has us focused on testing and on supplies, and making sure that those that are enduring the symptoms of the coronavirus and those who are ministering to them, our extraordinary healthcare workers, have the support that they need. In the category of supplies, you just heard Dr. Birx indicate that we've made great progress. We have done more tests in the last 8 days than were done in the previous 8 weeks, and it's because of the public-private partnership that the President forged with commercial labs. And I would encourage people around the country to remind your family members and friends, if you don't have symptoms, don't get a test. We want to make sure people who are having symptoms, who have a concern, have the ability to be tested and to have those tests processed. We're continuing to urge all county hospitals, all labs around the country to report to the CDC all the results of the test, as it'll give these experts around us the ability to continue to advise the President on best practices. As I mentioned, we all continue to follow the outbreak around the country and the test results. But as several have mentioned, we're particularly focused on New York. The reality is the New York metro area was 60% of the new cases in the country. And specifically, as a layperson, I can tell you that the infection rates are roughly 1 in 1,000 in the New York City metropolitan area, where they are 0.2% per thousand or 0.1% per thousand in places like Washington State. It is the reason why today the White House Coronavirus Task Force is calling on any American, first and foremost, if you're in the New York City metropolitan area or elsewhere, to take the guidelines that we issued and avoid non-essential travel. But for anyone in the New York metropolitan area who has traveled, our task force is encouraging you to monitor your temperature, be sensitive to symptoms, and we are asking anyone who has traveled out of the New York City metropolitan area to anywhere else in the country to self-isolate for 14 days. We have to deal with the New York City metropolitan area as a high-risk area. And for that reason, we're taking these steps and asking for the cooperation of the American people. Because of the spread in New York City, we will continue to surge resources. The President has described this. FEMA is coordinating with New York State for the arrival of the USS Comfort in just a matter of a few short weeks. Over the next 24 hours, more than 4,000 additional ventilators will be delivered to New York State as well. New York State has prioritized 3 alternative medical facilities, and at the President's direction, the Army Corps of Engineers is working on plans to build those facilities out. You've heard the President speak about the Javits Center, the addition of 1,000 beds, and we'll continue. I want the people of New York City and the greater New York City area to know that we're with you. We're going to continue to provide resources to support your state and local officials as they confront the spread of the coronavirus in that great city. On the subject of supplies, we had team meetings today at FEMA, which is working on identifying the critical personal protective equipment and ventilators. At this point, FEMA informs us today that they are distributing 7.6 million N95 respirator masks, more than 14 million surgical masks, and FEMA has already shipped 73 pallets of personal protective equipment to New York, 36 pallets of personal protective equipment to the state of Washington. We'll be meeting again tonight. As you know, the President stood FEMA's National Response Center up, and they are in the lead for the approach to the coronavirus, which is locally executed, state managed, and federally supported. And we'll continue to surge those resources and make sure that they're available. One last word, if I may. The President reflected on the response businesses around the country have brought to this moment. It truly is extraordinary The President did initiate the Defense Production Act last week, but as the President has reflected many times, we will use the Defense Production Act if we need it to mandate production of critical supplies. But so far, no one has said no. And in fact, we see industry stepping up. The President mentioned Ford Motor Company working with 3M and GE Health to expand production of medical supplies. We heard that McDonald's is now offering curbside delivery to truckers who are unable to use the drive-through to pick up a Big Mac. And I spoke today, and the President spoke last week with Tim Cook of Apple, and at this moment in time, Apple went to their storehouses and is donating 9 million N95 masks to healthcare facilities all across the country and to the national stockpile. There is a level of generosity that I know is inspiring to the President, and it's truly inspiring to all of us who are working on the White House Coronavirus Task Force. The President's made it clear that he hopes, in weeks, not months, to be able to open up the country. But let me make one last encouragement to every American. We will get to that day quicker if every American will put into practice the President's coronavirus guidelines for our nation. 15 days to slow the spread. If every American will do this, I have no doubt that we will slow the spread, we will protect our most vulnerable, and we will heal our land. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, you just reiterated that you hope to have the country reopened by Easter. You said earlier you would like to see churches packed on that day. My question is, you have two doctors on stage with you. Have either of them told you that's a realistic timeline?
I think we're looking at a timeline. We're discussing it. We had a very good meeting today. If you add it all up, that's probably 9 days plus another 2.5 weeks. It's a period of time that's longer than the original 2 weeks. So we're going to look at it. We'll only do it if it's good, and maybe we do sections of the country. We do large sections of the country. That could be two. But we're very much in touch with Tony and with Deborah on everything we're doing.
Who suggested
I
that
just thought it was a beautiful time. It would be a beautiful time, a beautiful timeline.
So that was
It's a
based
great
on
day.
any of the data?
It was based on a certain level of weeks from the time we started, and it happened to arrive. Actually, we were thinking in terms of sooner. I'd love to see it come even sooner, but I just think it would be a beautiful timeline. John?
Mr. President, if you look at what we've just seen in the last day or so, you've seen the number of known coronavirus cases in the country double in just 2 days. Another 95 people have died just in the last 24 hours. New York's governor is saying this is spreading like a bullet train across the country, and the governor of Louisiana is saying that his state may not be able to handle the cases that they're facing by early April. So what are you seeing in all of this that leads you to think that we could reopen by Easter or even earlier?
Sure. We're working with all of them. We can be talking about large sections of our country because there are sections of our country that you didn't talk about that are doing unbelievably well. They have very little incidence or problem, very small numbers. It's very possible that they won't be ever subject to what's happening in New York. New York is definitely a hot spot. There's no question about it. And you know what we're doing in New York to try and help. And I think we're doing an incredible job. We're going to have the hospitals up quickly, the medical centers also quickly. But we'll just have to see. We have to follow it. We have to see. We're going to look at that curve. We're going to see when it starts coming down. And we'll do the best job that can be done. John, please.
Question for you, Mr. President. Dr. Fauci, if we could. Just looking at this idea of an Easter timeline, and I don't know that's probably flexible, what are the metrics by which you will make the decision as to whether you can say, yes, we can open up this area of the country, or no, we can't open up that area? I mean, will you be looking at disease numbers? Will you be looking at possible containment, isolation?
I think we'll be looking at a lot of things. We'll also be looking again at very large portions of our country. And I will be guided very much by Dr. Fauci and by Deborah and by some of the other professionals that work with both of you. And we're going to see what will be. But that would certainly be, I think that's a goal that perhaps can happen, or at least for a very large portion of our country.
That's President Trump there speaking about his remarks, clarifying what he said earlier in regards to easing social distancing by Easter. Making some other statements at this task force briefing, they were talking about how the White House says anyone in New York should self-quarantine. Experts saying about 56% of cases in the United States are coming out of the metro area there, and 60% of those new cases are coming out of the metro area, I should say, and 31% of the people are succumbing to the disease. Of course, we'll keep following all these developments for you here at this press conference and have a complete wrap-up here coming up in our evening newscast as well. We got to get to some breaking news here at home, right, Ashley?
Yep, so DOH is reporting 14 new cases of coronavirus here in Hawaii. One of those cases is still pending, so that brings the statewide total now to 90. Now, DOH has a breakdown of the total count by residents, so this means where the patient is from, and this is kind of interesting. So 58 of the total cases are here on Oahu, 2 are on Hawaii Island, 1 is on Kauai, 9 on Maui. There are 11 non-Hawaii residents in the count, and 3 international residents, and there are 7 cases still pending, which means they probably have to figure out where these people are from. So breaking news now, DOH reporting 90 cases now in Hawaii.
Nearing 100 there. We're going to get some more information from DOH coming up at a 1:30 briefing. That one, they usually are now carrying it live on their Facebook, and we're sharing that. And then we'll have a press conference coming up with Caldwell, which is unrelated to those new numbers, but we'll certainly get some new details from him there on the stay-at-home order as well. But we also want to get back on track here to our broadcast. We were telling you earlier about an overnight house fire, which involved a state office where people were sort of having to adapt and deal with this stay-at-home order. Casey Lund was there, talked to the people that work there. Let's listen to what happened.
HNN tells us that fire started just before 2:30 this morning. The Wahiawa Fire Station, actually, just a couple blocks down from this WIC office, so they were able to get here very quickly, but you can see still a lot of damage, if not completely destroyed, this main mobile office unit. I'm here with Laura Morihara. Laura, you're with the WIC office here. This is a pretty devastating morning for you guys.
It really is. In the midst of this COVID-19, we were considered essential workers, and we were contacting all of our clients, servicing them remotely by phone, and now our building is burned down along with, it seems, everything inside. Everything's on computers and saved, though, and I do want to assure our clients that we will be contacting them as soon as there's a way to set that up for us. But right now, it's just a shock to see what our building looks like. It's a complete loss.
And Laura, inside that building, I overheard you speaking with fire investigators. You guys were providing vital services for women and infants, as the program is named. I heard you say that you had a lot of breast pumps that were very valuable. Tell me a little about what's at stake here and what has been lost.
Well, I think there's a lot. I think it's certainly not the end. We certainly can service clients, but it may take a few days to figure out how we're going to do that. And I'm sure our state office will be supporting us the whole way. We're just going to need, our staff is going to need computer access and be able to contact our clients so we can continue to service them remotely. As far as the breast pumps, there are pumps at other clinics. I'm sure we'll find a way to get that, but that's a complete loss. These are pumps that we lend out to moms who have premature infants who need to pump their milk to get their milk going. We also have staff that call clients and help moms with breastfeeding and just infant feeding and nutrition in general.
That was Casey Lund reporting there, giving us an update on that overnight situation there in Central Oahu. Let's talk about the Olympics, because, you know, it was just a few weeks ago where everyone was excited about this. There was some questions about whether or not it would happen or not. Now we've learned today it's official, not going to happen, at least this year.
That's right. The International Olympic Committee announced a decision to postpone the 2020 Games until next year while the world grapples with the coronavirus pandemic. Remy Inocencio reports from Tokyo.
Team USA voiced its support for a postponement, saying in a statement, even if the current significant health concerns could be alleviated by late summer, the enormous disruptions to the training environment, doping controls, and qualification process can't be overcome.
It's definitely way beyond sports. It's all about health and safety of not only yourselves, but the ones around you.
Team USA sprinter Manteo Mitchell took home a silver medal in 2012. He says postponing the games would be bittersweet, but fellow athletes getting sick has him concerned.
Here I am, a professional athlete. I could possibly get this and not even know, especially with my immune system being as strong as it is. So, I'm taking all the proper precautions that, the CDC is putting out.
First-time Olympian Kate Courtney is a mountain biker who qualified for the Tokyo Games. She said it'd be a huge disappointment not to compete.
I've been riding virtually with Olympians from different countries. I can train from my home gym and share videos on Instagram and see what other people are doing.
And YouTube users may notice a reduction in video quality. That's because videos now default to standard definition. The company announced the global change today and rolled it out right away, saying the move is meant to, quote, do our part to minimize the stress on the system during the unprecedented situation. The change is expected to last about 30 days, but fear not, you can still manually change the resolution on your videos.
All right, so a lot of experts talking about so many people out there walking around that have the virus but are showing no symptoms. Now there's a new UK doctor doing some research that could help give a hint to help those people know if they have the virus or not.
No one knows the symptoms of the coronavirus better than those who are living with it, like 39-year-old Tara Langston, who's in intensive care in London.
Please, none of you take any chances. I mean it.
But while people have been asked to watch for a fever, cough, and body aches, doctors in the UK say there's something else to look out for.
Many of us working across the globe in areas with rising rates of COVID-19 are seeing a big spike in patients who are otherwise completely fit and well, often under 40, presenting with relatively sudden onset and complete loss of smell and taste.
Professor Claire Hopkins says ear, nose, and throat doctors worldwide have reported more patients with the condition over the last few weeks. Doctors caution these symptoms can be common with other viruses too, and say in the majority of cases, both senses should come back on their own. Utah Jazz star Rudy Gobert was the first NBA player confirmed to have COVID-19. He tweeted that he hadn't been able to smell anything for 4 days. And a British health minister who also tested positive says she lost 100% of her taste and smell. Doctors hope these possible clues to help diagnose COVID-19 will encourage more people to self-isolate.
I do believe it has the potential to make a difference.
A new marker health experts hope may help slow the spread. Riley Carlson, CBS News, London.
Now, your Amazon Prime order could be delayed. That's because the company is prioritizing medical supplies, baby formula, and other essential items right now. Prime usually promises 2-day delivery, but now many items are not expected until late April. And it's okay to get essential groceries under these stay-at-home orders here in Hawaii, and some stores have already taken action to prevent the spread of the virus by keeping customers 6 feet apart while in the checkout line. Photos from inside the Eva Beach Lounge Drugs and Post Office show tape distancing customers. Now, many busy grocery and convenience stores are being forced to find creative ways to keep people apart. Jerica Duncan has a look at the challenges.
In cities where space is already tight, staying at least 6 feet apart from other people has become increasingly challenging.
You almost accidentally don't do it a bunch of times because you forget, and then you have to take a step back.
Matt Zender in Seattle says he was initially surprised by grocery store policies to help keep customers at a distance. Several major chains are limiting the amount of people allowed inside. Others are adding visual cues like these tape squares to space out customers waiting in line, or placing large crates in front of registers to keep people away from cashiers.
It's so helpful if we can implement policy controls and environmental controls that help people alter our behavior.
Carolyn Canusio is the Director of Research at the Center for Public Health Initiatives at the University of Pennsylvania. She says the other key to social distancing in cities is timing.
If we need to go out for exercise, we need to try to do that at times when the public parks or paths are not very busy. If we need to go to the grocery store, we should try to either order ahead and just pick up the groceries or to go at non-busy times.
Another major problem is people simply ignoring orders to stay home, crowding Los Angeles beaches, Bay Area hiking trails, or New York City parks, and prompting officials to add new restrictions.
I think people are definitely taking advantage of going to the beach and still congregating in groups, which now in turn has kind of ruined it for the rest of us.
I start to see more and more people in parks together, not really holding on to that 6 feet away rule at all.
Canusio reminds people that outside of your home, you should have as little contact as possible with others.
I think people let their guard down when they see people who are familiar to them. They don't hesitate to visit the homes of friends. Familiarity does not confer protection.
Some other helpful tips to consider is buy enough groceries that will last you for several days so that you don't have to make trips back and forth to the grocery store. And also hide your phone from yourself when you're grocery shopping. This allows you to not transfer as many germs when you're grocery shopping, then touching your phone. Instead, experts say, do the grocery shopping, come home, wash your hands, and then you can use your phone. Sharika Duncan, CBS News, New York.
All right, and you saw in her little stand-up there, that's what we call those, where the reporter's talking it in. She was doing it, obviously, from a remote location because she is in New York, and they're dealing with such a crisis there. I've noticed some things when I've been going to the grocery store. The sneeze guards going up at Safeway.
That's right.
It's a thick glass going between you and the cashier. Saw the lines there as well going down on the floor. And then when I was at Safeway, the manager was actually, would announce to all the cashiers, time to sanitize, and then everyone stopped, wiped down their whole conveyor belt, wiped down all their keys, and they were wearing masks too, of course.
Yeah.
So have you seen anything?
I've noticed at my bank, I went to the bank the other day, they have taken away, you know where you fill out your form?
Oh, yeah.
And then you go stand in line? Well, that thing is completely gone. I don't think they want people congregating around it or using the pens and touching all the papers, so you just go straight in line, you go straight to a teller.
I know, it's so many little things that you don't even think about until they're gone, right? I wanted to show this picture. This is from Min Plastic Supplies. They're actually converted, this is a local company, folks, they've actually converted their operations into making plastic shields for hospital workers.
Very
and you
cool.
can even see on the boxes in this picture they posted to Facebook that some of those shields are going to places like Straub and things like that. We've got some things in the works here at HNN to help get you more informed and hopefully help keep you and your family safe, right?
That's right. On Thursday, Hawaii News Now is hosting a 2.5-hour primetime panel discussion on the coronavirus. Now, Governor David Ige will attend along with Lieutenant Governor Josh Green, the school superintendent, and other economic and medical professionals. In total, we'll have at least 13 experts sharing their knowledge on the virus and how they're responding to it. And we'll be taking and talking about the new stay-at-home orders and how it impacts you and answering as many of your questions as we can. Now, again, this is this Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m. right here on Hawaii News Now and, of course, all our digital platforms.
Yeah, we'll both be a part of that, so we'll be here on Thursday evening with you guys as well. Hope you take part of that and watch. Again, coming up here, Ashley is running out the door right now. She has a Kirk Caldwell press conference to get to at 1:30. We are going to stream that live on our digital platforms only. Again, at 1:30, we do expect our normal briefing from DOH. Typically, they've been sharing those on their Facebook page and the governor's Facebook page, and then we reshare that. So look out for that as well. And we'll keep a lookout for other afternoon updates we'll be posting on our HNN digital platforms. And then our newscasts, of course, start right at 5 o'clock here at HNN. Until then, I'm Jonathan alongside Ashley. You guys have a great rest of your day.